Good morning. Welcome to our service from the Unitarian Universalist Meeting House in Springfield, Vermont. My name is Dick Andrews. I am one of the trustees. We welcome those of you in the meeting house as well as those of you on Zoom. We're glad you are with us this morning. We are a covenantal community in which we have promised to care for and learn from each other. Together, we seek to deepen and broaden our faith and understanding. Your joining us today will enrich our covenant and our ever-widening community. If you are a guest today, we invite you to simply enjoy being with us. At the end of the service, there will be a time for announcements and a chance for you to introduce yourself if you like. You are also welcome to join us after the service for either our real or our virtual coffee hour discussion time. Thank you again for joining us.
But I have the distinct pleasure to introduce, well, most of you know Diane Kemble, who is a longtime member of this congregation, and somebody who grew up in this congregation and has grown up and moved on, but is the same generation as my children, and they knew each other way back then, Allaire. And Allaire has brought her family along. So we're so glad to have you and to hear what will come out of the discussion on this topic. So Allaire and Diane, take it away. Well, actually, I'm going to do the bell and then the chalice, and then you can take it away.
We are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful faces and complex natures, so that creation need not play to an empty house. Annie Dillard.
Diane.
Oh, yes, we're doing our song too, yes. So our opening song is a longtime favorite of mine, This Pretty Planet. We sang it a lot in school, and we have sung it here for many years, but not recently. So it's a good one for today's topic, This Pretty Planet.
This pretty planet spinning through space, your garden, your harbor, your holy place. Golden sun going down, gentle blue giants spin us around. All through the night, safe till the morning light. This pretty planet spinning through space, your garden, your harbor, your holy place. Golden sun going down, your gentle blue giants spin us around. All through the night,
Our story for all ages today is giving thanks, a Native American good morning message by Chief Jake Swamp. And Julaine has the video for us of this story and illustrations.
Today's story is Giving Thanks, a Native American good morning message by Chief Jake Swamp and illustrated by Erwin Printup Jr. To be a human being is an honor, and we offer thanksgiving for all the gifts of life. Mother Earth, we thank you for giving us everything we need. Thank you, deep blue waters around Mother Earth, for you are the force that takes thirst away from all living things. We give thanks to green grasses that feel so good against our bare feet, for the cool beauty you bring to Mother Earth's floor. Thank you, good foods from Mother Earth, our life sustainers, for making us happy when we are hungry. Fruits and berries, we thank you for your color and sweetness. We are all thankful to good medicine herbs, for healing us when we are sick. Thank you, all the animals in the world, for keeping our precious forests clean. All the trees in the world, we are thankful for the shade and warmth you give us. Thank you, all the birds in the world, for singing your beautiful songs for all to enjoy. We give thanks to you, gentle four winds, for bringing clean air for us to breathe from the four directions. Thank you, Grandfather Thunder beings, for bringing rains to help all living things grow. Elder Brother Sun, we send thanks for shining your light and warming Mother Earth. Thank you, Grandmother Moon, for growing full every month to light the darkness for children and sparkling waters. We give you thanks, twinkling stars, for making the night sky so beautiful and for sprinkling morning dewdrops on the plants. Spirit protectors of our past and present, we thank you for showing us ways to live in peace and harmony with one another. And most of all, thank you, Great Spirit, for giving us all these wonderful gifts, so we will be happy and healthy every day and every night. The end.
What a lovely story, and great illustrations too. Those of you who are here will find in your order of service a piece of paper with our affirmation on it. You can read it there, and Julaine will post it up here on the wall. And would you join with me in saying the words of our affirmation? Why are we here? Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve the needs of all beings, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with the source of our being. Thank you for sharing those words. And now we get to listen to Bill again. He will play while we accept the offering for the ongoing work of this congregation and food for the family center.
Hi, everybody. Really fun to be back in this space that I think I first came to when I was 11 or 12 years old. Very excited to share some thoughts and some concepts and hear what all of you have to say as well. We're going to read a poem called Indakana, and this is by the Abenaki poet and writer Joseph Bruchac III. Indakana. And for those who may be wondering what that word means, that's the Abenaki word for their traditional homeland, which includes the land that we are sitting in right now. You cannot understand our land with maps, lines drawn as if earth were an animal's carcass, cut into pieces, skinned, divided, devoured, though always less eaten than is thrown away. See this land instead with the wind eagle's eyes, how the rivers and streams link like a sinew through a leather garment sewed strong to hold our people, patterns of flowers close to the brown soil. Do not try to know this land by roads, hard lines ripped through old stones, roads which still call for blood, of not just those who cross, wild eyes blinded by twin suns startling the night, but also those who seek to follow the headlong flow atop that dark frost, unthawed by the sun, those seasons and the insistent lift of the smallest seeds seek, without ceasing, space for the old soil. Instead, let your feet caress this soil in the way of the deer whose feet follow and form trails through the ways of least resistance, knowing ridges and springs, ways of wind through the seasons, the taste of green twig and tender grass, the sweet scent of rain urged up from moist earth. When you feel this land, when you taste this land, when you hold this land, as your lungs hold your breath, you will be the rattlesnake, always embracing earth with her passage. You will be the salmon, a chant whipped through the ripple. You will be the deer mouse, small feet stitching the night. You will be the bear, thunder held in soft steps. When your songs see this land, when your ears sing this land, you will be this land. You will be this land. And now for our meditation, I invite you to do what Joseph Bruchac was asking in the poem. Let your feet caress this soil in your mind. Take a moment and place yourself in a spot in the world that you know well. Feel it, taste it, hold it, breathe it in, and spend a moment there in that space. Now come back to the sanctuary, to the space we're in together today. And we're going to move into a discussion now. We're going to be discussing a piece of the work of Aldo Leopold. I know many of you, maybe all of you, are familiar with Aldo Leopold, who he is, maybe some of his writing, some of the impact that he's had on our thinking about the environment, about the land, and our responsibility to it. In my work with Vermont Land Trust, and also with a group of just people from all over the state in a group called Land Ethic Vermont, we engage in conversations and holding space with the different people in all different parts of the state, people from all different walks of life, all different, who do all different kinds of things on the land and have different relationships with it, to develop a land ethic, to discuss what a land ethic means. And Aldo Leopold wrote that the land ethic is merely an expansion of the idea of the way that we treat each other ethically in our human communities, where we are, the responsibilities that we have for each other in this community and our other families and human communities. The land ethic is simply an expansion of that idea of responsibility to include the broader land around us, the animals, the plants, and the soil, the rock, and the land itself. So what we would like to do is we're going to read an essay, a short essay by Aldo Leopold, and then we're going to discuss this essay with the idea that it's going to really be a conversation about a land ethic. And it's my hope that everybody who feels comfortable, whether it's people on Zoom or people here in the sanctuary, will participate. When I do these conversations, normally, we all have a copy of the essay, which you all have. We're sitting in a circle. The size of the group here in the sanctuary is kind of a perfect size for one of these conversations. Because of just logistics, Diane and Sharon and I are going to be reading it together, but imagine us sitting in a circle and everybody's voice chipping in to share a small piece of the essay. So with that, the three of us are going to read the essay, Thinking Like a Mountain, which is available in Aldo Leopold's Sand County Almanac. This was written in 1948. Thinking Like a Mountain. A deep, chesty bawl echoes from rimrock to rimrock, rolls down the mountain, and fades into the far blackness of the night. It is an outburst of wild, defiant sorrow and of contempt for all the adversities of the world. Every living thing, and perhaps many a dead one as well, pays heed to that call. To the deer, it is a reminder of the way of all flesh. To the pine, a forecast of midnight scuffles and of blood upon the snow. To the coyote, a promise of gleanings to come. To the cowman, a threat of red ink at the bank. To the hunter, a challenge of fang against bullet. Yet behind these obvious and immediate hopes and fears, there lies a deeper meaning, known only to the mountain itself. Only the mountain has lived long enough to listen objectively to the howl of a wolf.
Those unable to decipher the hidden meaning know nevertheless that it is there, for it is felt in all wolf country and distinguishes that country from all other land. It tingles in the spine of all who hear wolves at night or who scan their tracks by day. Even without sight or sound of wolf, it is implicit in 100 small events. The midnight whinny of a pack horse, the rattle of rolling rocks, the bound of a fleeing deer, the way shadows lie under the spruces. Only the ineducable tyro can fail to sense the presence or absence of wolves, or the fact that mountains have a secret opinion about them. My own conviction on this score dates from the day I saw a wolf die. We were eating lunch on a high rim rock at the foot of which a turbulent river elbowed its way. We saw what we thought was a doe fording the torrent, her breast awash in white water. When she climbed the bank toward us and shook out her tail, we realized our error. It was a wolf. A half dozen others, evidently grown pups, sprang from the willows and all joined in a welcoming melee of wagging tails and playful maulings. What was literally a pile of wolves writhed and tumbled in the center of an open flat at the foot of our rim rock.
We reached the old, hold on. In those days, we had never heard of passing up a chance to kill a wolf. In a second, we were pumping lead into the pack, but with more excitement than accuracy. How to aim a steep downhill shot is always confusing. When our rifles were empty, the old wolf was down, and a pup was dragging a leg into impassable slide rocks. We reached the old wolf in time to watch a fierce green fire dying in her eyes. I realized then, and have known ever since, that there was something new to me in those eyes, something known only to her and to the mountain. I was young then and full of trigger itch. I thought that because fewer wolves meant more deer, that no wolves would mean hunter's paradise. But after seeing the green fire die, I sensed that neither the wolf nor the mountain agreed with such a view.
Since then, I have lived to see state after state extirpate its wolves. I have watched the face of many a newly wolfless mountain and seen the south-facing slopes wrinkle with a maze of new deer trails. I have seen every edible bush and seedling browsed, first to anemic desuetude and then to death. I have seen every edible tree defoliated to the height of a saddlehorn. Such a mountain looks as if someone had given God new pruning shears and forbidden him all other exercise. In the end, the starved bones of the hoped-for deer herd, dead of its own too much, reach with the bones of the dead sage or molder under the high-lined junipers.
I now suspect that just a deer herd lives in mortal fear of its wolves. So does a mountain live in mortal fear of its deer, and perhaps with better cause. For while a buck pulled down by wolves can be replaced in 2 or 3 years, a range pulled down by too many deer may fail of replacement in as many decades. So also with cows. The cowman who cleans his range of wolves does not realize that he is taking over the wolf's job of trimming the herd to fit the range. He has not learned to think like a mountain. Hence, we have dust bowls and rivers washing the future into the sea.
We all strive for safety, prosperity, comfort, long life, and dullness. The deer strives with his supple legs, the cowman with trap and poison, the statesman with pen, the most of us with machines, votes, and dollars. But it all comes to the same thing: peace in our time. A measure of success in this is all well enough, and perhaps is a requisite to objective thinking. But too much safety seems to yield only danger in the long run. Perhaps this is behind Thoreau's dictum, "In wildness is the salvation of the world." Perhaps this is the hidden meaning in the howl of the wolf, long known among mountains, but seldom perceived among men.
Thank you to you both for reading that with me. And now I really hope that we'll all be able to discuss this together. So I invite, I'll ask questions and you can respond, and then people can respond to each other. I hope we'll get into a free-flowing discussion, and just be sure to speak up so others can hear you.
And I might suggest, if you were able to come up and speak up here, so you'll be better picked up by that mic just in front of the podium.
Great, that's a great, yeah. And I don't know if there is a way for folks on Zoom, if people are interested, to raise their hand if they have something that they would like to say. I know it's hard to manage a discussion in a hybrid setting, but if we can, I'd love to hear your voices and your thoughts as well.
And I think that Anne-Marie will probably let us know if there is somebody with their hand raised there. Okay, great. So come up or speak from your seat, and regardless, project your voice. So I guess I'll just start.
So Dick has his hand up.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I'll say that my favorite line of Aldo Leopold's is, "To keep every cog and wheel is the first precaution of intelligent tinkering."
Yes, I love that as well. That's another quote from the essay, The Land Ethic, I believe, from Sand County Almanac.
Yeah.
So to keep every cog and wheel is the first, what was it, Dick? First attribute of intelligent tinkering?
First precaution.
First precaution of intelligent tinkering.
You can shorten it to save all the parts.
Yes. So I love that. And I think that's a great way to jump into this conversation. So that idea of saving all the parts, this essay really relates to that. There, you can draw a connection to that idea of saving all the parts to the specific scene that is described in this essay. What is the part that Leopold was trying to save in that experience that he had as a young man? What was he trying to save? Yeah, Sharon.
I would say just that spark of wildness.
Well, when he was a young man, in the experience he describes in the essay, which people have kind of done a bunch of research on his life and come back to this point when he was a young forester in Arizona in 1910, 1911. They think that's what this scene actually was describing. What was he doing with the other people that he was with? What did they see, and what did they do in response?
I think they were cruising the range, evaluating it.
Yep. And then what did they see down in the river?
Somebody else.
I know these are basic questions. This is just trying to get the gears turning.
Wolves, right?
Yeah, exactly. They saw wolves, and then they just immediately acted. They didn't even think about it the way he describes it. What did they do in that kind of non-thinking action? They shot at them. Yeah, they shot at them. Yep. Yeah, and like he says, more excitement than skill, right? So they just started shooting. So when you react in that way to something, there's some kind of deeper ingrained sort of value that makes you do it. You're not even thinking about it. So what was that value that he and his friends had? What they see wolf, they start shooting. What was the attitude that they had about wolves at that time?
That they were predators.
That they were predators? Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
To just protect themselves or protect their deer or protect their livestock, whatever, from the wolves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That they were a threat. They were predators. They needed to protect themselves. And then who were they trying to protect? You just said it, but could you elaborate a little more, or somebody else?
They wanted to protect the deer so they would have better hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the logic was, there's all these wolves. Wolves attack deer. If we get rid of the wolves, there'll be plenty of deer. And what did he observe over the course of his life about deer?
Too many.
Too many. And so what were some of the signs that there were too many deer?
They needed predator. They needed predator.
Yeah. What happened in the absence of the predators?
There was too many deer.
Everything overbrowsed.
Everything overbrowsed. Yep. So I love those descriptions on the back page, that top paragraph. Every edible tree defoliated to the height of a saddle horn. Oh, yeah, Jelaine.
I just want to add that I've seen quite a bit about the reintroduction of wolves into our national park system, and how that has changed the entire ecology just from having the wolves there, with less deer. Then when the shrubs are not all eaten up by the deer, then the birds come back and the pollinators come back. So it's really so much more complex than just the deer, you know, and having too many of them, that it destroys the entire ecosystem. So just one animal, the wolf, being missing, sets everything, you know, it's a domino effect. And then when you add the wolves back in a matter of just a few years, it's back into harmony. So it's just a really interesting thing. Those wolves are really important.
I'd like to add that I was fortunate enough today.
Do you want to come up and speak?
Then speak up. All right, baby. I was fortunate enough to be in Arizona where they had a memorial to him. And it was a beautiful, beautiful place. You could stand there and you could look out on the mountains and the valley below. I don't know if anybody's ever been there. It's just absolutely beautiful. That's one of the things that I think he also appreciated. He also appreciated that very much too in his life, the beauty that of the wildness, the feeling of wildness being there.
Yeah. And I have something now to add. In getting ready for doing this service, I totally got into Aldo Leopold and finding out everything I could about him. And our library here in Springfield has a wonderful biography about him. And he was a hunter, and he from his young life. And I think that's one of the things that's so interesting about him is the changes that he made over his lifetime, from realizing his involvement and the changes that happen in the land. And just, he seemed like he never stopped deeply considering what things meant. So even though this sounds just absolutely horrible, that it would be something that he would even do, he learned over his lifetime and worked to help people understand the way our whole ecology works together. And he drew this. There's a wonderful diagram that he's made, that he kept working on. And he also taught students. He was a college professor, and he was just so multifaceted and never ever stopped learning and acting on what he was learning. That's what was so amazing. Something else about this, related to this, that when there were so many deer, not only did the plants all get eaten down, but there was then not enough food for the deer because it was such overpopulation, and that many of them starved to death. So even though they seemed to have plenty of food, that even ran out too. So so his life is just so interesting in that we're still being guided by the things that he was learning and discovering.
Thank you. Other thoughts on that? I love the line in this essay about the green fire dying in the wolf's eyes. It's such a powerful, it's very sad line. And just really like, that was the moment, I think, when he really learned something. He wasn't sure what it was yet. And he took him, decades more to, through work and working in different places and different jobs, and writing, to really understand it. But that idea of this like moment, this green fire moment, when you, something that you just kind of take for granted that you're doing, suddenly you just have a realization about it, I think is very powerful. I'm wondering if others picked up on that in here and have a thought on it, or maybe you want to share something like that that happened. Yeah. Go ahead. Okay. Yeah, on Zoom. Yeah, Bet.
The word that comes to my mind is balance. I think what the green light was going out was realizing that the balance is going to go away. And what he longs for was the balance to come back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah.
I don't know where to stand here.
Oh, you can stand right there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of levels to this, and I had to leave the room after because I was in such tears. Yeah. The green light in the eyes, among other things, is he recognized empathy. He recognized that he had something in common with this other being. I have my own story much closer to home, but for me, it was every bit as powerful. I lived in a little cabin up on the farm by the pond, and yeah, I got rats at one point. So I finally, and I didn't, even then I loved all life, but they made a lot of noise at night, and I just needed to get rid of them. So I set a rat trap, no use poisons, but the regular trap. Yeah, I caught it, his leg. And what was I going to do? He wasn't going to be able to probably make it. Would his leg heal? No. So I don't have guns. I don't want anything to do with guns. I had to take I think I had some kind of a maul or some firewood hatchet or something. And I beat him to death, his head. And I will never, ever forget the look, the pleading look in this rat's eyes to please let him live. And balance. It is very, very tough. But, we do have and can find a relationship with every other living being. Trees, when I cut down trees, it's hard. I don't like to do it. I don't like to kill anything. So finding the balance with all this is important, and I appreciate his story. And how many hunters have I heard their story when they shot the animal or arrowed it or whatever and realized it didn't kill it and it was suffering and it didn't get it. And then they decided that was it. They'd had enough of that kind of food. They didn't want to be responsible for it. So it's tough. And I don't know what the answers are, but balance. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and I do want to just acknowledge that this is a tough story, and that there are descriptions in there, and I think that are hard. And thank you for sharing that. Take this off. Thank you for sharing that, and just acknowledging that there's some really challenging words, and it speaks to the power of Leopold's writing. It doesn't make it any easier to kind of digest it. And so thank you. And for others that are feeling just that pain in hearing these details, sending love. Did someone else have something on Zoom that they wanted to respond? Yeah, Christina.
She's muted.
He's working on it.
Did we get it?
Yeah, you're here.
You can hear me?
Yes.
The part that really got to me was when they started shooting into the tumbling family of baby wolves and the mother, and I just can't imagine doing that. You know, as much as you might want to get rid of something, you know, an entity of species of animal, how can you do that going into the babies? Oh, that just killed me when I heard that. So I'm not making any wild points or anything like that, but I'm just expressing my feelings about the babies being shot at. Ugh.
Well, thank you for that. And I do think that one of the powerful things about this piece and about a lot of Leopold's writing is just that you are invited to get into the perspective of somebody else. And he invites that in his conversations and his writing about a land ethic. He's always inviting us to see the perspectives of others, even if they might be very painful for us to hear. And I think that you both just shared things like of how difficult it is to sort of look at a different perspective, especially one that feels abhorrent or feels like it's causing pain. And that's a piece of just like, we're all working on these ideas together, and that involves listening and having that empathy, even when something is tough to hear. Yeah, Sharon.
Slightly different topic. In the email that June sent out, the invitation to this service, she included some links. And one of them is to the Northern Woodlands article that Allaire wrote, which is mostly interviewing, 9 other people? Yeah. Something like that. And it's really worth reading. I read them all. And my comment is from the interview with the first person, whose name I forget, but a man who is part of the Mohawk tribe in Akwesasne. And his whole interview was very interesting, but I was struck in particular by a comment he made toward the end that, you know, he does all these things to keep traditions alive and, you know, hunting and fishing and growing food. And he said, you know, he talked about the relationship with the land. And he said, it's really hard to just stick to one piece of it, one, you know, mapped out, surveyed piece, that you end up caring for more than what you might pay taxes on. You know, what about just across that border? Do you care about that? In our system, you really don't have permission to go on somebody else's land and make changes, but you can still care about it. And I just want to say that I lived for several years in a way where we lived different places where we knew what that boundary was, but we cared for the whole land around us. We didn't really think about those borders. And it's a very freeing thing, and a way that we can all feel more connected by caring for all of it beyond your own borders.
Dick has his hand up again.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. For several decades, one of my primary activities was advocating for protected wilderness areas on the Green Mountain National Forest, getting Congress to establish them. And we did have some success, but this, I think, addresses another feature of balance. One of the things that Aldo Leopold said was what will avail 40 freedoms without a blank space on the map. And a lot of ecologists have been working on trying to determine how much land needs to be left alone and unmanipulated. And if we want to keep all the pieces, it really is quite a large number. So there needs to be a lot of thought about that balance as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just, I think it's a great, both Sharon and Dick, your comments really make us think about kind of, we have these personal experiences, these reactions to an individual animal or an individual experience in our own lives, and then thinking about how that translates out to decisions about how we treat land as a greater community, as a state, as towns, as a state, as a country, conservation policy, and how we put this ethic into practice in a pretty concrete way. Yeah.
Well, Dan, we have a couple more hands, but I want to make sure that before we finish, Allaire works for the Vermont Land Trust, that you could maybe tell how Leopold's land ethic guides what decisions the Vermont Land Trust makes, because it's not always easy decisions to undo things that have been done. So if you could touch on that at some point. But Dan has his hand up back here.
Yeah.
One thing that struck me with this story here is the parallel between the deer herd overrunning the land and people.
Thank you.
I don't know what top predator is missing, but it seems like
yeah,
where the forest, you know, is cut off to a certain height, you know, well, our grass is cut to a certain height.
Yeah.
We do that.
Yeah.
But who was it that puts a limit to that?
Mm-hmm.
And how?
Yeah. It's getting back to that idea of balance.
Can you restate that to make sure we capture?
Yeah. So I'll paraphrase, Dan, because I can't say every word, but you were saying that you found a parallel between the idea of the deer herd overrunning the mountains and the concept of people kind of having a similar impact on land. Yep. And we're missing a top predator. So in Leopold's case, the top predator is the wolf. And when wolves are gone, the deer can just kind of run wild. And there's all of these unintended consequences that people couldn't predict until they saw them start to take place. And here I'm kind of expanding on what you said a little bit, but you're saying who's the top predator in the case of people, I guess, and how can we maybe return to balance? Is that part? Yeah. It's not exactly what you said, but
to me, it's a big question.
It's a question.
I don't have an
yeah.
answer.
Yeah. Yeah. If we had the answers, we would, we might not be here today. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I think the answer is written here. It says, in wilderness is the salvation of the world. And perhaps this is the hidden meaning in the howl of the wolf, long known among mountains, but seldom perceived among men. If we perceive this and really, really deeply, deeply understood it, like Aldo did, then we could make those changes. And that's probably what you're going to address in your organization, because it is so important to really feel that. And he did when he looked into the eyes of that wolf, and that dying wolf, it was an epiphany for him. And it affected his whole life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the quote from Thoreau, in wildness is the salvation of the world. Yeah. I think that a question that I love the name of this essay, and I often kind of think about it when I'm out doing my job or just like living my life. Like, what does it mean to think like a mountain? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just such a complicated and interesting and completely engrossing idea. What does that mean? It's not something that I think the size of that question is too big for me to like think I would ever have an answer to it, but it's something that I can eternally kind of process and try to come a little bit closer to. I'm curious if folks have a thought, and I'm happy to talk about my work at the Vermont Land Trust. I feel like we can maybe talk about that at the coffee hour. We have maybe 1 more minute of our conversation here, but I'd love to hear 1 or 2 people's thoughts. What does it mean to think like a mountain? Or
I'm not sure what it means to think like that. But one of the things that really got me in the essay was when he was talking about the green fire, and I was thinking of all of the colors in the mountain, why did he choose green? And I couldn't tell if that was just the reflection of the trees as the wolf was guarding, or if it was more just his thoughts on environmentalism in general. But why was the fire green? Was he thinking like a mountain? So I was really confused by the color choice.
That's a very interesting question. I've never thought about that. I guess I always assumed that was the actual color of the wolf's eyes, but maybe not. I mean, I think there's a really powerful kind of symbol in that too, and maybe it means something else. Thank you. Yeah.
Were you talking to me?
Yeah.
I guess one thing in thinking about a mountain, when you ask what does it mean, one thing I think it means is to take a very long view.
Yes. To take a long view. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think just in conclusion, to come back to that idea of taking the long view. And I think, Dick, what you started with, the rule of intelligent tinkering is to save all the pieces. And coming back to that in here, I mean, I think the 2 obvious pieces that are in this essay are wolves and deer. And I invite you all, as we get back out into our communities and in your questions and decisions that you need to make about land, what are the pieces involved? What are the pieces that you can see in front of you that are there, but what are the pieces that are maybe like the ghostly pieces that are gone and are missing, throwing something out of balance just by their absence? I think that's the question, because then you get into very interesting questions of how can we restore those lands? And that's a lot of the work that I do at the Vermont Land Trust, is think about ecological restoration and do ecological restoration projects. And some of that is me actually looking around, seeing one thing, but kind of trying to imagine back into history, what would this look like if this wasn't actually a wet, muddy field, but actually was a wetland, a natural wetland that is what it used to be in the past, and how can we return it to that state? So think about what the pieces are. What are the pieces that you see? What are the pieces that are sort of hovering out of the picture that you can bring back in? I really want to thank everybody for a very thoughtful and meaningful discussion here. And I think we did manage to make it work in a hybrid way, which is, I'm really grateful for all the technology that we can do that. And just thank everybody for that. In closing, share another thought from Aldo Leopold in his essay, The Land Ethic, where he says, "Nothing so important as a land ethic is ever written. It evolves in the minds of a thinking community.